Okay, let us continue our discussion on the Revised Corporation Code of the Philippines. Okay, dali ito yung part 5. Okay, illustration. ABC Corporation's Articles of Incorporation provide for 7 directors and an authorized capital stock of 1 million divided into 10,000 shares with a par value of 100 per share. Now, in the election of directors for 2020, the following run for the position. Bali, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and H. On that date, the corporation daw had 7,000 outstanding shares, of which 5,000 shares has been paid in full, while 2,000 shares were paid to the extent of 50% of the subscription price. Now, all the shares were subscribed at a par value and covered by a binding subscription agreement. Now, if you are a stockholder who own 500 shares, how many votes are you entitled to cast in the election of directors? Okay, now sabi ko before, kapag stock corporation, ang total number of votes mo is the number of shares multiplied by the number of directors. Now, since there are 7 directors, okay, kaya lumalabas 500 shares multiplied by 7 directors, you have a total of 3,500 votes. Kaya the answer here is letter B. Okay, question. Refer to the information in the preceding number. The number of shares issued by the corporation is. Okay, now pag binasa mo yung corporation code, there is no definition of issued. But, okay, ang dinefine sa corporation law is the outstanding shares. Ang definition ng outstanding shares, sabi doon, outstanding shares means issued. Nandun din pala issued. As long as there is a binding subscription agreement, whether paid or unpaid, minus treasury stock. In other words, if there is no treasury shares, it means outstanding shares is same as issued. At ang ibig sabihin ng issued, as long as meron daw binding subscription agreement, whether paid or unpaid, lumalabas, considered siya as issued. Kaya kung 7,000 yung outstanding shares, 5,000 shares fully paid, yung 2,000 shares daw dito, bayad 50% lang. Kaya lumalabas, ang issued dyan, kaya bayad o hindi, kaya lumalabas 7,000 shares. Kaya the answer is letter A. Now, there is a question before. Pag tinanong kita, ilan yung dapat number of shares na hawak nyo para magkaroon kayo ng assured seat sa board of director, kunwari, na 3. The formula is D is equal to A times B over C plus 1 plus 1. Pero kung tinanong kita, how many number of votes ang kailangan nyo in order to have a seat na 3 in the board of director? The formula is simply is equal to D times C. Okay, or simply gawin mo lang, compute mo dun sa D, yun nga, i-times mo lang ng number of shares. Okay, ito yung lumalabas na legend niya. Yung A daw is total number of outstanding shares entitled to vote. B is the number of directors desired to be elected. C is the total number of directors to be elected. D is the number of shares necessary to elect the desired number of directors. And E is number of votes required to elect the desired number of directors. Now, kung ako sa inyo, huwag nyo nang memoryahin yan kasi makakalimutan nyo rin yan. Okay, gawa na lang tayo ng illustration para madali nyo ma-recall. X daw, a stockholder, wishes to be elected to a 9-man board. You expect that out of 3,000 outstanding shares, only 2,000 shares will be represented at the meeting. Now, if X seek control of the company and desired to elect 5 directors, how many shares are needed to elect 5 directors? Actually, ang formula talaga niyan, diba dapat outstanding shares multiplied by the desired number of director over total number of director plus 1. Then mag plus 1 ka. Meron daw 3,000 outstanding shares, pero 2,000 lang daw yung represented at the meeting. Kaya obvious na yung 1,000 irrelevant because they cannot vote because they are absent. Okay, and if there is no proxy. Kaya instead na gamitin ko yung 3,000, I will use the 2,000. Kaya 2,000 multiplied by the desired number of director. Ang desired ko kasi kailangan ko ng 5 director. Over total number of director which is 9, mag-plus ka ng 1, then plus 1, you need 1,001 shares. Kaya ibig sabihin kailangan nyo ng 1,001 shares para magkaroon kayo ng assured seat na 5 director out of 9 director. Pero pag tinanong kita ng number of votes na, ang gagawin nyo lang, yung total number of shares, i-multiply mo ng number of director which is 9. Therefore, you need 9,009 votes. Kasi yung number of shares times the number of director, yun yung votes. Kaya you need 9,009 votes in order to have 5 seat in the board out of 9. Another illustration. Suppose there are 20,000 outstanding shares of a corporation and 11 directors are to be elected. The minority stockholders wish to elect 3 directors. Letter A, how many shares are required to elect 3 directors? Same formula. Outstanding shares multiplied by the desired number of director na 3 over total number of directors na 11 plus 1, then mag plus 1 ka. Kaya lumalabas 20,000 outstanding multiplied by the desired number of director over total number of directors na 11 plus 1 then plus 1. Kaya 20,000 times 3 is 60,000 divided by 12, that is 5,000. Plus 1, you need 5,001 shares. Now, kung i-convert ko siya sa number of votes naman, bali 5,001 shares you multiplied by the number of director which is 11. That's why you need 55,011 votes. Kaya para magkaroon kayo ng assured seats sa board of directors na 3 out of 11, you need 55,011 votes. Okay, before natanong yan, pero ngayon hindi na masyadong tinatanong. Okay? Let us proceed now sa vacancies. Of course, pag meron kayong ni-remove na director, magre-result yan ng vacancy in the board. O kaya yung director kunwari namatay or nag-resign or otherwise ceased to hold office. Okay? Ngayon, ang issue lang naman dito sa Section 29 ngayon na dating Section 28. Okay? Section 28 ngayon, okay, under RA 11232 na Section 29 under BP 68. Ang question lang kasi, kailan mag-fill up ang director, kailan allowed ang director na mag-fill up ng vacancy in the board, at kailan stockholder. Now, sabi lang naman ng batas simple, pag ang ground daw ng vacancy is due to expiration of term, removal of directors, or increase in number of directors, or other than ERI. ERI siya kasi E-R-I. Kaya ibig sabihin other than expiration, removal, or increase in number of director, but there is no more quorum in the board of director. In that case, only the stockholders can fill up the vacancy in the board. Pero pag ang grounds ng vacancy is other than ERI, other than expiration, removal, or increase in number of director, and the remaining directors still constitute quorum, in that case, pwede siyang i-fill up ng remaining members of the board. Now, let us illustrate. For instance, there are 5 directors. Okay, A, B, C, D, E. Later on, A die. Namatay si A. Kaya ang ground ng vacancy is due to death. At hindi siya expiration, hindi siya removal, hindi rin siya increase in number of director. It means other than ERI siya. Pero since meron pang remaining 4 directors at ang quorum ng 5 is only 3, and there are still 4 directors left, it means, okay, meron pa rin valid quorum. In that case, the remaining board of directors may fill up the vacancy in the board. However, if there are 5 directors, A, B, C, D, E, and A, B, C die, in that case, the ground for the vacancy is other than airy, but there is no more quorum in the board of director. Kasi ang natitira na lang, dalawa, ang quorum is 3. In that case, only the stockholders can fill up the vacancy in the board. Pero kung halimbawa, tinanggal for instance si A as a director due to niremove siya ng stockholder by vote ng 2/3 ng outstanding capital stock pursuant to Section 27. Na Section 28 ng KRA, Batas Pambansa bilang 68, lumalabas, okay, ang pwede lang mag-fill up is only the stockholder. O kaya halimbawa nag-expired ang term nila. Pag ang ground ng vacancy is due to expiration ng term, okay, lumalabas, ang pwede lang mag-fill up is only the stockholder. Sabi mo, sir, how about increase? Example, there are 5 directors fixed in the article. Later on, you amend the article of incorporation to increase the number of director from 5 to 7. Lumalabas, okay, yung 2 dun, new position, and therefore, vacant. But that is increase in number of director. That's why only the stockholder can fill up the vacancy in the board. Pero however, there are some authors saying that meron pang dinagdag eh. Pag halimbawa, ang ground ng vacancy daw is other than airy, other than expiration, removal, or increase in number of director, and the remaining directors still constitute quorum. Di dapat pwede siyang i-fill up ng remaining members ng board. However, the board of director decide to refer it to the stockholder. In that case, the stockholder will fill up the vacancy in the board. Kasi ibig sabihin, yung remaining directors, although they still constitute quorum, ayaw nilang mag-act on that matter. Kaya ni-refer nila sa stockholder. Kasi wala naman nakalagay sa batas na okay, mandatory the remaining board of director should fill up the vacancy in the board. Kasi pwede ring i-refer sa stockholder. Kaya dinagdag siya ng ibang author. Okay, kaya tandaan nyo ha, other than removal by the stockholder or members or expiration of terms, majority ng remaining director or trustee is still constituting quorum. Pero removal by stockholder or member, okay, or expiration of term or increase in the number of director other than removal, expiration, or increase, but was referred by the board to the stockholder in regular special meeting called for that purpose. Pwede siyang i-fill up ng remaining members ng board of director. By the way ha, yung director trustee elected kasi rito will serve only the unexpired term of the predecessor in office. Kasi halimbawa, namatay for instance si A. Kaya lumalabas ang ground ng vacancy is due to expiration, due to death. Pero nakapag-serve pa lang siya ng 3 months. Okay, kung halimbawa, pinaltan siya for instance ni X, kasi pwede siyang i-fill up ng remaining members ng board. Ang in-appoint for instance is si X. Then X will serve only the unexpired term which is the 9 months. Okay? Next, ito bago. Tingnan nyo class ha. Okay, ang sabi kasi dito ng Republic Act 11232, pag halimbawa ang ground class ng vacancy is due to expiration, okay, kailangan magkaroon daw ng election to fill up the vacancy, okay, not later than the day of such expiration. Kaya bago mag-expired yung date nun, bago dumating yung date nung end ng term nung director, kailangan magkaroon na ng election to fill up the vacancy. Okay, kung removal naman siya, kasi di ba by the way, sa expiration ng terms of office ng director is 1 year. Kaya bago mag-expire yung 1 year na yun, dapat nagkaroon na ng election. Pero kung halimbawa ang ground for vacancy is due to removal of director, ngayon sabi dito, the election daw may be held on the same date. Ibig sabihin, kung halimbawa nagtawag for instance ng special stockholders meeting to remove X as a director, pwedeng i-fill up na yan on the same day for the removal of director. Kaya magkakaroon na rin ng election on the same day, okay, to fill up the vacancy in the board. Pero kailangan daw magkaroon kaya ng notice of meeting. Tapos naka-indicate yan, specific na agenda, at nakalagay din sa notice of meeting. Okay? Now, ibig sabihin, pag bigay mo ng notice of meeting, di ba naka-indicate din doon yung agenda ng meeting sa stockholder. Now, in that case, naka-indicate doon na magkakaroon kayo ng election on the same day. Pero pag halimbawa ang ground ng vacancy is all other cases na, ibig sabihin other than expiration or removal siya, like death, resignation, dapat magkaroon kayo ng election daw not later than 45 days from the time the vacancy arose. Kaya lumalabas ito, magandang tanong yung 45 days na yan. Kaya pakimark ninyo yung 45 days kasi malaki ang probability na itatanong yan sa board exam. Kasi walang ganyan before under Batas Pambansa bilang 68. Kaya tandaan nyo, other than expiration and removal, dapat i-fill up siya within 45 days daw. Okay, magkaroon ng election. Okay? To fill up the vacancy in the board, okay, from the time, okay, the vacancy arose. Okay, now punta tayo sa emergency board. By the way, ito maganda rin itanong to because this is a new provision under Republic Act 11232. Walang ganito sa Batas Pambansa bilang 68. Sabi ko sa inyo, before kasi, kung sa BP 68 yan, pag halimbawa, walang quorum ang Board of Director, eh di walang magagawa yung board kung di mag-call ng special stockholders meeting. Okay? To fill up the vacancy in the board kasi wala kayong quorum. Kaya kung walang quorum, walang valid act na magagawa yung corporation. And that is defect on the Batas Pambansa bilang 68. Kaya dito, pwede kayo mag-create ng tinatawag na emergency board. Kasi kung kailangan ng immediate action, kasi otherwise it will cause irreparable damage to the corporation. Okay, because of this lack of quorum in the board, pwede mag-create ng emergency board. At if i-fill up yan among officers of the corporation. Kaya halimbawa, there are 15 directors. The quorum of course of 15 is 8. Eh ang problema, namatay kunwari yung, sabi natin ano na lang, para mas simplified, 5 lang. Ang quorum ng 5 of course is 3. Eh ang problema, namatay yung 3. Therefore, there are 2 remaining members ng board. Wala na kayong quorum. Kaya in that case, pwedeng mag-create ng tinatawag na emergency board. Okay, pwede tayong magkuha sa isang officers para maging temporary director. Okay, para ma-fill up yung missing na isa. Okay, pero kailangan para makapag-create ng emergency board, the following requisite must be present. Siyempre una, yung vacancy daw na prevent yung remaining director from constituting quorum. Kasi ba't ka mag-create ng emergency board if there's still a quorum of the board? Diba? Kaya kailangan wala ng quorum ang BOD. Second, okay, emergency action is required to prevent grave, substantial, and irreparable loss or damage to the corporation. Kaya ibig sabihin, okay, yung emergency nito, ibig sabihin meron kasing scenario na kapag hindi nag-act immediately, yung board of director, magkokosto ng substantial, dapat substantial and irreparable. Irreparable loss. Kaya diba pag sinabing irreparable, it means the loss, once na incurred mo yung loss, that is already beyond repair. At pangatlo, kailangan ng unanimous vote of the remaining directors or trustees. Ito pang ano dyan eh. Kung halimbawa, there are 3 directors kunwari. Okay, di ba may 2 remaining members ng board, tapos pumasok ngayon tong officers, pampalit para magkaroon ng quorum. Therefore, may quorum na sila. Kung 3 yun, kailangan 2 votes ang kailangan para magkaroon ng valid act. Pero dapat ang sinasabi dito, may unanimous vote yung remaining director or trustee. Kaya dapat magboto yung remaining director. Okay, unanimous vote. Okay? Eh paano kung ganito, sir? Sabi mo ganito. There are 15 directors. Kung 15 yung directors, tapos namatay for instance yung, okay, sabihin nating, wait muna. Okay, sabihin natin class na there are 15 directors. Okay, ang quorum ng 15 is 8. Okay, di ba 8 ang lumalabas na quorum. Okay, ang problema, namatay yung 8 din. Kaya ang lumalabas na remaining is, okay, 7. Okay, kaya wala nang quorum kasi ang quorum natin 8. Ang ginawa, nagdagdag for instance ng 2 members ng board. Nag-create ng emergency board, 2 dinagdag. Kaya lumalabas 9 ang existing director. 7 yung original at 2, okay, it means 2 ay emergency members ng board. At ang quorum of course natin, okay, lumalabas kung 9 yan, umattend silang lahat, kailangan ko ng 5 votes para magkaroon ng valid act. Pero lumalabas, okay, 5 votes ang kailangan eh. Pero ang kailangan ko kasi dito, may unanimous votes yung remaining members ng board of director. Kaya technically dapat 5 votes lang ang kailangan ko, pero dapat bumoto pa rin, okay, yung 7. Okay, yung remaining members ng board of director. Kasi yan ang requirement natin sa batas eh. May unanimous vote ang remaining directors or trustee. Okay, ngayon ganito. Okay, kasi yung emergency board was created only because of emergency circumstances. May merong emergency. Kaya sinasabi dito, okay, yung emergency board is term cease to exist. Number 1, within reasonable time from the termination of the emergency. Kasi kung wala ng emergency, there is no need for the emergency board to exist. Pangalawa is election ng replacement ng director trustee. Okay? Kasi, di ba, kung temporary lang yan, emergency board lang yan, okay, kailangan nyo pa rin magkaroon ng election ng members ng board to fill up the vacancy in the board. Kaya, kung ano yung mauna dyan sa dalawa, kasi na-terminate na yung existence ng emergency, o kaya nagkaroon na ng election ng okay, members ng board to okay, replace. Okay, to fill up the vacancy in the board. Whichever comes first. Kung anong nauna, o yun, terminated ka agad ang emergency board. Ngayon, may requirement tayo, administrative, sa law. The corporation must notify the commission within 3 days daw from the creation of the emergency board. Kaya ibig sabihin, pag create mo ng emergency board, dapat may notice sa commission. Possible na itanong din ng examiner yan within 3 days. Okay, from the time na create ng emergency board. And of course, i-indicate niyo yung reason. Kasi bakit kayo nag-create ng emergency board? Siyempre, justify nyo siyempre, number 1, wala nang quorum ang BOD. Pangalawa, may existence ng emergency at ito ay magkokos ng irreparable injury. Okay? Sa part ng corporation. Substantial and irreparable injury. At pangatlo, kailangan merong unanimous approval ng remaining members ng board of directors. Okay, now let us proceed now sa compensation. Okay, general rule is that directors are not entitled for compensation except for reasonable per diems. Okay, now why? Why is it that a director as a rule are not entitled for compensation except for reasonable per diem? Ibig sabihin, pag sinabing per diem kasi, pag merong meeting ng directors, whether regular or special, at umattend sila, entitled sa for per diem. Pero kung fixed salary, the rule is that they are not entitled for compensation. Pero syempre ang tanong mo nga is, sir, why? Because The general rule is that when the director rendered service to the corporation as a director, the presumption of the law is that his service is for free. Ibig sabihin ng presumption ng batas, pag director ka, nag-rendered ka ng service sa corporation as a director, your service is for free. Kaya hindi ka entitled for compensation except for reasonable per diem. Pero ang tanong, pwede bang bigyan ang director ng compensation? The answer is yes. Okay, number 1, kung nilagay sa bylaws. Pangalawa, pwede siyang i-grant ng vote ng stockholder representing majority ng outstanding capital stock, either in a regular or special meeting called for that purpose. Okay? Pakitandaan yung voting requirement na because, alam mo naman, laging natatanong ang voting requirement. Atong number 3, dinagdag lang ito ng isang author. An expert in commercial law. Okay, according to Albayani, directors and directors officers rendered extraordinary or unusual services. That is, services which are not properly incidental to their office and rendered outside of their regular duties. Kasi ganito yan, ang tinutukoy kong libre, yung director na nag-rendered ng service sa corporation as a director. Pero kung director or director officer ka na, ibig sabihin nag-rendered ka na ng extraordinary services na hindi naman part ng regular function mo as a director, abay dapat bayaran ka na. Kasi ang presumption na libre dito, yung ni-rendered na service ng director lang as an ordinary director. Pero pag may extra services ka na, abay dapat bayaran ka. Provided class, may limitation din pa. May limitation pa. That total yearly compensation shall not exceed 10% of net income before income tax of the preceding year. Kaya dapat kung preceding year net income is 10 million, maximum compensation that may be granted is only 1 million. Sabi mo, sir, pero director, ay hindi. Total na yun sa lahat ng director. Okay? Per month, sir, ay hindi. Siyempre, per year yun. Okay, at take note, hindi required. Okay, kasi yan ay ceiling. Maximum lang. Now, let us proceed now sa liability of director, trustees, or officers. Okay, ito yung tinatawag nating threefold duty ng directors or trustee. Okay, ano ba yun? Tinanong sa board exam yan before. What are the following are the threefold duties of director trustee except letter A, duty of obedience, duty of loyalty, letter C, duty of diligence, and letter D, duty of efficiency. Of course, the answer is duty of efficiency. Because the threefold duty of director trustee is found in section 31 before under BP 68 na section 30 ngayon under Republic Act 11232. At ang sabi dyan, any director trustee who willfully and knowingly vote for or assent to the patent and lawful act of the corporation. Pag na-violate daw yan, violation siya ng duty of obedience. Because ang director trustee, dapat daw mas at all time must be a law-abiding citizen. They should not, vote to the patent and lawful act of the corporation. Otherwise, they violate their oath as a director, which is the duty of obedience. Kasi dapat they need to obey the law. Pangalawa, who are guilty of gross negligence or bad faith in directing the affairs of the corporation. Pag na-violate yan, violation ng duty of diligence. Kasi dapat ang director trustee must act diligently and not to cause damage to the corporation. And last, he acquire any personal or pecuniary interest in conflict with his duty. Pag na-violate daw yan, violation ng duty of loyalty. Kasi between the self-interest of the director and the interest of the corporation, dapat ang paramount concern dyan, ang paramount, dapat he prepare the interest of the corporation rather than his own personal interest. At tandaan nyo, pag na-violate yung provision dyan, the liability of the directors are solidarity. And that is exception to the general rule under Article 1207 of the Civil Code. Kasi kung nare-recall nyo sa Article 1207, okay, general rule is joint. Pero nagkakaroon lang ng solidary obligation pag may law. Second, stipulation or nature ng obligation requires solidarity. And these are provided for by law. Makita mo yan sa Section 30 of Republic Act 11232. Kaya exception to the general rule. Solidary liability. Ngayon, sabi naman dito sa Section 30 paragraph 2, a director, trustee, or officer shall not attempt to acquire or acquire any interest adverse to the corporation in respect of any matter which has been reposed in them in confidence, and upon which equity imposes a disability upon themselves to deal in their own behalf. Otherwise, said director, trustee, or officer shall be liable as trustee for the corporation and must account for the profit which otherwise would have accrued to the corporation. By the way, kung titingnan mo yung first paragraph, it refers to director or trustee. While second paragraph applies to director, trustees, and officer. Okay? Di lumalabas na okay, another duty ng director, trustee, and officer. Okay? Ngayon, punta tayo doon sa tinatawag na self-dealing director. Okay, pag sinabing self-dealing director, simple lang yan eh. It means the director transact business with the corporation. At yung director na nakipag-transact sa corporation is called a self-dealing director. Now, naman general rule. Transaction between corporation and the self-dealing director as a rule is voidable at the option of the corporation. Okay, illustration. Halimbawa, ito si X Corporation. Ay, sorry. Okay, ito si X Corporation. Okay. Okay, ang director, kunwari, ay 5. A, B, C, D, and E. Ngayon, pag si A daw ay nakipag-transact kay X, ang tawag kay A ay self-dealing director. At ang sabi nga ng batas, transaction between corporation and the self-dealing director as a rule is voidable at the option of the corporation. Pero pwede raw siyang maging valid if the following requisites are present. Una, the presence of such director trustee in the board meeting in which the contract was approved was not necessary to constitute a quorum for such meeting. Tulad nito, there are 5 directors. Ang quorum ng 5 is 3. Ngayon, kung umattend ng meeting, kunwari si A, si B, si C, saka si D, may quorum yan. Kasi 4. Okay? Ngayon, ang tanong, pag tinanggal ko ba si A, may valid quorum pa din? The answer is yes. O, ibig sabihin, check number 1 ka. The presence of A is not necessary to constitute quorum. Pero kung halimbawa, ang umattend ng meeting lang dito is ABC, may valid sanang quorum. Pero since kasama si A, pag tinanggal ko si A, wala nang valid quorum. It means the presence of A is necessary to constitute a valid quorum. Ibig sabihin yung presence is necessary to constitute quorum. Ibig sabihin absent yung requirement A. Pangalawa, there are, may quorum, di ba? Pare, 4 sila. Ang problema, out of 4, ilan ang majority ng 4? 3. Ang bumoto, A, B, C, D. O ngayon, pag tinanggal ko si A, may valid act pa rin. Kaya present yung number 2. The votes of such director trustee was not necessary for approval of the contract. Pero kung halimbawa, out of 4 na ABCD, ang bumoto is ABC. Hindi may valid act kasi majority sila. Kaso kasama si A. Pag tinanggal ko si A, tie yan. Absent ang requirement B. Number 3, that contract is fair and reasonable under the circumstances. Pero sabi dito, in the case of corporation vested with public interest, Ito nag-apply lang pag may public interest ang involved. Okay, pag material contract daw siya, okay, are approved by at least two-thirds of the entire membership of the board. Kaya ibig sabihin kung 10 yan, kailangan, okay, in-approve ng two-thirds. Okay, two-thirds is 6.67. Kaya kailangan ko ng 7. Pero sabi doon, majority daw ng independent director voting to approve the material contract. Ang problema, ang sabi ng batas, kailangan ko ng 20%. Okay? Nung total number of director. Kaya ibig sabihin kung 10 yun, director, ang independent director is 2. Dapat majority sa kanila, okay, ay nag-vote sa approval. Okay? Kaya ibig sabihin, out of the 7, dapat yung dalawa dun, nag-approve na independent director. Pero ano ba, baguhin natin, what if there are 15? Kasi kung 15 yung directors, ang quorum niyan is 8. Okay? Eh ang 15, kailangan ko ng 10 na mag-approve kasi 2/3. Material act eh. Eh ang problema kung 15, there are 3 independent director. Dapat yung dalawang independent director doon nag-approve doon sa material contract. Ngayon sabi dyan, in case of officers daw, ito nag-apply lang doon sa corporate officers ha. The contract has been previously authorized by the board. Kaya lumalabas, kailangan may previous approval ng board of director in case corporate officers. Ang problema, ito yung nagpagulo dyan. In the case of contract with director trustee where any of the first 3 conditions set forth is absent. Sabihin, absent daw yung first 3 condition. Di kasama tong letter C. Kasi kung babasahin mo yung sa BP 68, mandatory requirement eh. Yung letter C. Kailangan the contract must be fair and reasonable. Kasi pag ang contract is not fair and reasonable, ay hindi yan subject to ratification. Kasi ang sinasabi ng batas, kung absent daw itong, kung present lahat ito, valid yan. Okay, pero pag absent daw yung any one of the 3 condition, voidable ulit, pero pwedeng i-ratify ng at least 2/3 of the outstanding capital stock. Provided may condition na naman. The transaction, the contract must be fair and reasonable. And second, inaunang requirement kailangan the transaction or contract must be fair and reasonable under circumstances. At pangalawa, nagkaroon ng full disclosure ng adverse interest na dinisclose during the meeting. Pero ang problema kasi, ito yung problema dyan eh. May full disclosure, yan yung unang requirement. Eh, tapos fair and reasonable. Eh, paano yan? Kung ang absent mo yung number letter C, eh, hindi nga siya fair and reasonable eh. Okay, kaya gumulo siya. Pero kung basahin mo yung BP68, A and B lang kasi ang binanggit doon. Pag absent daw yung A or B, voidable ulit. Pero pwedeng i-ratify ng at least 2/3 of the outstanding capital stock. Pero dito sa RA 11232, nakalagay first 3 conditions set forth is absent. I think, okay, kung i-construe natin yan, dapat it should be paragraph letter D, not paragraph letter C. Kasi itong paragraph letter C, mandatory requirement dapat yan. It must be fair and reasonable under the circumstances. Okay? Kaya subject pa rin siya sa ratification. Okay? Now, illustration yung binanggit ko kanina, if there are 15 directors, okay, kung merong material transaction imbued with public interest yan, kailangan i-approve siya ng 2/3 ng total number of directors which is 10. Tapos ang 20%, okay, nung 15 must be independent which is 3. Tapos kailangan ng approval ng majority ng independent director at ang majority ng 3 is 2. Kaya ibig sabihin out of the 10 directors, ang breakdown dapat niyan should be, okay, 2 independent director and 8 which is not an independent director. Okay? Okay, next punta naman tayo sa tinatawag na interlocking. Okay, ano may ibig sabihin ng interlocking director? Okay, example, A corporation, B corporation, si X, director kay A, at director din siya kay B. Ngayon, nagkaroon ng transaction between A and B with an interlocking director. The general rule is that transaction between corporation with an interlocking director as a rule is valid. Pucha, valid ang rule. Except in case there is fraud. Kaya kung wala namang fraud, ang rule, valid. Pero pag may fraud, voidable. Pero ang sabi ng batas, if the interest of the director in one corporation is substantial at ang interest mo sa another corporation is merely nominal. Sa part daw ng nominal interest, dapat lahat ng requirement ng self-dealing director must be present. Una, yung presence niya rito is not necessary to constitute quorum. Second, okay, vote daw niya is not necessary for validity ng act. Number 3, the transaction must be fair and reasonable under the circumstances. Okay? Ngayon, pag present lahat yun, valid. Pero pag absent yung 1 or 2, okay, voidable. Pero unless ni-ratify ng at least 2/3 of the outstanding capital stock. Okay, hindi ko na muna sinama yung material requirement. Okay, ngayon ang sinasabi dito, for purpose of this provision, consider daw siyang substantial pag more than 20% siya. Kaya 20% and below are considered as nominal. But 21% and above are considered as substantial. Syempre baka tanungin mo, sir, paano kung substantial to? Substantial din to. Balik ka sa general rule, valid, except in case there is fraud. Kung parehas naman siyang nominal, balik ka sa general rule, valid, except in case there is fraud. Mag-a-apply lang siya kapag isang substantial, isang nominal. Kasi ang reason dito is actually human nature. Because human nature dictates that if your interest in one corporation is nominal and your interest in another corporation is isang substantial, isang nominal, human nature dictates that you will protect your substantial interest to the prejudice of the nominal interest. Kasi ang tao ay likas na ganit, swapang, makasarili, buhaya. Kaya kahit nag-usap na kayo, okay, normally may nagbe-breach basta pera ang pinag-uusapan. Or, okay, kasi nga, buhaya ang tao. Kaya ibig sabihin kung titingnan natin dito, okay, kung ako si A, isang substantial dito, kalwa si X ka, substantial interest ka kay A, ang interest mo kay B is nominal, abay syempre mas pro-protectionan ko yung substantial interest ko to the prejudice ni B. Kaya sinasabi nga ng batas, sa part daw ng nominal interest, dapat lahat ng requirement ng self-dealing director must be present. Okay, o yan ang concept ng interlocking. By the way, hindi ito yung investment in associate. Kasi sa investment in associate is 20% and up to 50% are considered as okay, significant influence. Kaya di ba pag meron kayong at least 20% ng voting right, meron ng okay, presumption na meron kang significant influence over the okay, investee company. May significant influence ka over the investee company. Pero pag lumagpas ka na ng 50%, lumalabas, control na siya. Hindi ito yung 20% kasi dapat more than 20%. Baka malito ka. Dapat more than 20% para maging substantial. Pag 20% and below are considered as nominal. Ngayon po na tayo sa disloyalty of director. Sabi dyan, when a director daw, by virtue of such office, acquires a business opportunity which should belong to the corporation. Okay, may tanong muna ako sa inyo. Ibig bang sabihin, halimbawa, director ako, nag-acquire ako ng isang business opportunity, automatic disloyal ka? The answer is no. Kasi para maging disloyal to director ka, kailangan mayroong isang business opportunity na dapat belong to the corporation. Pero however, by using your office, you grab this business opportunity na prejudice yung corporation. Kaya sabi ng batas, you are bound to account for the profit by refunding it to the corporation unless daw ni-ratify siya ng at least two-third of the outstanding capital stock. By the way, class, yung threefold duty ng director kaninang diniscuss ko sa under paragraph 1 and paragraph 2, hindi yun subject to ratification. Pero yung disloyalty of director ay subject to ratification. Okay? Two-third of the outstanding capital stock. Okay, this provision thou shall be applicable notwithstanding the fact that the director risks one's own fund in the venture. Okay? Kaya yan ang tatandaan nyo, ha? Okay? Kaya kung meron kang isang business opportunity, meron kang lumalabas na may isang business opportunity na dapat sa korporasyon, pero however, by using your office, ginanap mo yung opportunity na to, ng prejudice yung corporation. Kaya meron kang duty na i-refund dyan sa corporation unless ni-ratify ng at least two-third of the outstanding capital stock. Okay? Balik lang. Okay, let us discuss executive committee. Ang executive committee daw, okay, bali dapat, okay, provided siya under the bylaws. Okay, composed daw siya of at least 3 directors. Kaya ibig sabihin, okay, kailangan ang composition ng executive committee dapat meron diyang at least 3 director. Pwedeng halimbawa, out of the 5 members ng execom, pwedeng 3 doon, director, yung 2 is non-director. Basta kailangan merong at least 3 members coming from the board. Okay? Now, they may act by majority vote of all these members. Okay, on such specific matter within the competence of the board. Kaya normally, since ang execom is created ng bylaws, okay, at ang powers nila normally ay provided under bylaws or pursuant to the power delegated by the board. In that case, may conclusion tayo that the executive committee cannot be more powerful than the board. Hindi pwedeng maging more powerful pang execom than the board. Kasi lumalabas, dapat within the competence ng board. Kaya kung walang power ang board mag-act, lalong walang power ang execom. Kaya yan may be delegated to is in the bylaws or pwedeng majority ng BOD. Kaya yung powers nila na-derive lang sa bylaws or pwedeng majority ng board of directors. Kaya tandaan niyo yung concept, ha. Kumbaga basic concept is that the spring cannot rise from its source. Hindi pwedeng mas powerful pa yung execom than the board. Ngayon, let us proceed now sa limitation of power ng execom. Kasi ang rule kasi dyan is that, okay, hindi pwedeng mag-act ang execom on the following matter. Actually, obvious naman eh. Letter A, approval of any action for which shareholders' approval is also required. Sabi mo, sir, can you give an example na act na kailangan ng stockholders' approval? Naku, balikan mo yung pinapamemorize ko sa inyo. Yung 8 instances wherein non-voting shares are entitled to vote. Kasi lahat yun ay merong stockholders' approval or ratification. Ano nga yun? Number 1, amendment ng Article of Incorporation, adoption and amendment ng corporate bylaws, sale, lease, exchange, pledge, mortgage of all or substantially all ng corporate property, increase, decrease capital stock, incurring, creating, or increasing banded indebtedness, investment ng corporate fund other than for primary purpose, merger consolidation, saka corporate dissolution. Lahat yan kailangan ng stockholders. Approval. Pangalawa, filling of vacancy in the board. Napag-usapan natin before na kapag ang ground ng vacancy is other than ERIC, ibig sabihin other than expiration, removal, or increase in number of director, okay, or other than ERIC, but okay, meron pang quorum, okay, ibig sabihin wala nang quorum ng BOD, stockholder lang magpipila. Pero pag ang ground ng vacancies other than okay, expiration of term, removal or increase in number of director, and the remaining director still constitute quorum, then pwede siyang i-fill up ng remaining members ng board of director. Okay? Ang problema, sinasabi ng batas, ang execom, wala silang power mag-fill up ng vacancy in the board regardless of the grounds. Another is amendment or repeal of the bylaws or the adoption of new bylaws. Actually redundant yan kasi alam natin na kailangan dyan ng participation ng stockholder. Okay? Another is amendment or repeal of any resolution of the board which by express term is not amendable or repealable. Example, ang board of director nag-execute ng board resolution pero nakalagay doon na by express term, this board resolution cannot be amended or it cannot be repealed. Ibig sabihin, ang tawag dyan, irrepealable board resolution. Can the board of director, can the execom repeal an irrepealable board resolution? The answer, of course, is no. Bakit? Kasi nga ang concept, okay, the execom cannot be more powerful than the board. Sinasabi nga ng board of director, irrepealable siya. Hindi siya pwedeng i-repeal ng mere execom. Only the board itself can repeal an irrepealable board resolution, but not the executive committee. Okay, and last is the distribution of cash dividends to the shareholder. Okay, baka tanongin mo ako, sir, cash dividend po yan eh. Paano kung stock dividend? Lalo na, because in stock dividend, the directors cannot declare it without the concurrence of the stockholder. Kailangan doon ng 2/3 ng outstanding capital stock. Kaya babagsak siya sa paragraph A na kailangan ng shareholders approval. Okay? Next. By specific provision of law under Section 34 of Republic Act 11232. Sabi dyan, the Board of Directors may create a special committee. Pwede gawa ng compensation committee, audit committee. Okay? Now, yan ay dinagdag dito. Management committee. Okay? Pwede kayong mag-create ng mga committees na dito by specific provision of law. Wala kayong makikita niyan before under BP 68. Yan na, pwede ka mag-create ng special committee na may temporary or permanent nature daw and determine the members' term. Okay? Pwede ring nomination committee, di ba? Sa Rules on Corporate Governance, may mga nomination committee. Kasi lumalabas yung committee na to magno-nominate, okay, para kung sino ang magiging members ng Board of Directors. Compensation. Okay? Or management committee. Pwedeng ilagay yan. Okay? Nilagay lang yan by specific provision of law. Ngayon, let us proceed now sa powers. Okay? Ngayon, ang powers ng corporation, tatlo. Bali express, implied, saka incidental or inherent power. Ngayon, Kasi di ba ang sabi ko before, pag ang corporation ay nag-perform or nag-execute ng act outside the express, implied, or incidental power, then the act of the corporation is an ultra vires act. Pero pag ang corporation is nag-act within the express, implied, or incidental power, that is an intra vires act. Ngayon sa express power, walang problema. Kasi nakikita niyo yan sa batas. Okay? Makikita mo yan sa mismong language ng corporate charter. Doon sa Article of Incorporation or the Fundamental Law. Okay? Okay, found in the word of charter or law. Kaya ibig sabihin nandun sa batas. Okay, nandun sa article nyo. Tulad ng halimbawa, bangko, ano ba mga powers nila? Makikita mo yan sa General Banking Law. Okay? As well as the provision in the Article of Incorporation. Kaya lumalabas yan yung pinaka-main object or purpose ng corporation. Okay, pag implied, hindi siya nakalagay sa wording ng law. Pero yan ay reasonably necessary daw to carry out its purpose. Kaya ibig sabihin, lahat ng act ng gagawin ng corporation na reasonably necessary para ma-attain nila yung purpose na naka-indicate sa Article of Incorporation, that is an exercise of implied power. Okay, kaya yan, largely with the means and method of attaining those objects and purposes. At pwede siyang mag-change according to time, place, and surrounding circumstances. Kasi lahat ng act nga na reasonably necessary para ma-attain mo yung purpose na naka-indicate sa article, exercise ng implied power. Halimbawa, nag-hire kunwari yung corporation ng lawyers in order to protect their interest in courts. Okay, hindi naman nilagay, kahit di mo ilagay sa batas yan exercise ng implied power yan. Kasi yan ay reasonably necessary para ma-attain nila yung purpose na naka-indicate sa article. Pero pag inherent powers na kasi siya, inherent power, incident na siya dun sa corporate existence. Ibig sabihin, as a consequence ng pagiging juridical person, yun yung lumalabas na powers niya. Okay? Di ba ang consequence ng existence ng juridical person, it means they can acquire property in their own name, they can sue, and they can be sued. Kaya yung power to acquire property, to enter into a contract, is an inherent power. Kaya kahit hindi yan banggitin sa batas, hindi yan ultra vires act. Ngayon, kung babasahin mo yung Section 35 of Republic Act 11232 na dating Section 36 under BP 68, naglagay ng enumeration dito with respect to the powers of the corporation. Okay? Ngayon, lahat yan express kasi nakalagay dito Pero tandaan mo yung paragraph 7 and 11, implied rin yan. Alam mo yung paragraph 7, ito yung power to purchase, receive, take or grant, hold, convey, sell, lease, pledge, mortgage, and other way deal with such real and personal property, including securities and bonds of other corporations, as the transaction of the lawful business of the corporation may reasonably and necessarily require, subject to limitation prescribed by law and the Constitution. Kaya yan implied yan kasi yan ay reasonably necessary para ma-carry out yung purpose ng corporation. At yung paragraph 11 actually yung definition class ng implied power. Or otherwise. Okay. Ngayon. Okay. Yung paragraph 11 diyan na okay, bali yung definition ng implied power is to exercise such other powers as may be essential or necessary to carry out its purpose or purposes as stated in the Articles of Incorporation. Ngayon, ito namang paragraph 1357 is an inherent power. Bakit ko sinabing inherent? Kasi yan yung consequence ng pagiging juridical person. Number 1, to sue and be sued in its corporate name. Okay? Kaya lumalabas, as a consequence ng pagiging juridical person, they can acquire property in their own name, they can sue, and they can be sued. Kaya yung paragraph 1. Okay, paragraph number 3. Para mag-adapt ng bylaws, mag-adapt ng use and corporate seal, di ba? Para ma-distinguish ka from another corporation, Okay? Then, pwede kang gumamit ng corporate seal. Mag-adapt ng bylaws kasi internal rules to. Okay, na hindi raw contrary to law, moral, or public policy. Okay, and to amend or repeal the same in accordance with the scope. Kasi consequence ng pagiging juridical person mo, pwede kang mag-set up ng internal rules. And of course, yung paragraph 7 is mag-acquired ng property. Mag-enter ng contract, and so on. Kaya kahit hindi yan banggitin, hindi ultra virus siya. Ano ba gusto kong emphasize dito? Hindi ibig sabihin na express yan, exclude niya yung implied and incidental kasi hindi naman siya mutually exclusive to each other. Kaya pwede, nagko-complement siya. Tulad ng paragraph 7, express na siya kasi nakalagay siya sa 35 paragraph 7. Implied rin siya kasi reasonably necessary yan para ma-carry out yung purpose ng corporation. At of course, inherent din siya kasi incident yan sa corporate existence. Okay? Ngayon, ito, tingnan mo to. Mapapansin mo yung paragraph number 8 dito. Paragraph 2 muna. To have perpetual existence na. Kasi dati sa corporation law, may right yung corporation na mag-exist doon sa period na naka-indicate therein in the article of incorporation. Pero syempre, it should not exceed 50 years. Pero since binago ng RA 11232 to, pag wala kang period na naka-indicate sa article, automatic perpetual life ka. Yan yung changes. Another change is nakalagay before lang sa batas to enter into merger or consolidation lang. Kaya itong mga naka-bold na to, dinagdag yan. Mag-enter ng partnership, joint venture, or any other commercial agreement daw with natural or juridical person. Okay, ito tingnan mo. To make reasonable donation including those for public welfare or hospitals, charitable, cultural, scientific, civic, or similar purposes. Ito yung binago, tingnan mo. Provided that no corporation. Okay? Dati kasi sa BP 68 nakalagay domestic or foreign. Okay, ngayon binura ito. Kaya lumalabas dito, allowed ng domestic corporation na magbigay ng donation in aid of any political party or candidate or for purpose of partisan political activity. That is in consonance with the provision under the Omnibus Election Code. Kaya lumalabas ang prohibited na lang ngayon ay foreign corporation. Okay? Pero dati kasi doon sa BP 68, bawal ang domestic and foreign. Okay? Domestic or foreign corporation. Pero since nagkaroon ng provision doon sa Omnibus Election Code, okay, in-include na rin dito. Bali, nangyari dyan, tinanggal na yung domestic. Kasi allowed ang domestic na mag-donate sa political party or candidate for purpose of political partisan activity. Okay, kaya tandaan nyo ha, tinanggal yung domestic, ingatan nyo yan. Baka itanong na examiner. Okay? Ngayon, to establish pension, retirement, and other plan for the benefit of its director, trustees, officer, employees. And of course, yun nga, yung paragraph 11, lahat ng act na essential or reasonably necessary para matin yung purpose ng corporation, para ma-carry out. Now next, punta tayo sa power to extend or shorten corporate term. Okay? Ngayon, ganito. Di ba yung period kasi or term ng corporation nakalagay yan sa article. At para magkaroon kayo ng extension, normally you need to amend the article. Okay? Mag-extend ka ng corporate term. At ang voting requirement, kailangan ko ng approval ng majority ng BOD and, tingnan mo ha, ratified. By the way, sabi ko sa inyo, check ninyo yung table for the voting requirements. Check nyo kung approved or ratified dun. At a meeting by the stockholder or member representing at least two-thirds of the outstanding capital stock or its member. Okay? Kaya tingnan nyo ha, may tinanong na sa board exam I think. Okay, sa bar exam tinanong din yan. Choices is may ratified, may nakalagay approve. Siyempre, ang sagot, ratified dapat. Kaya approval ng majority ng BOD and ratified ng at least two-thirds of the outstanding capital stock. Ngayon, ang general rule, di ba sabi ko before, pag nag-amend ka ng article of incorporation, okay, hindi kailangan ng meeting. Kasi nakalagay doon ay vote or written assent ng at least two-thirds of the outstanding capital stock. Pero sabi ko, pag merong tinamahang specific provision sa corporation code na nagre-require ng meeting, susundan mo siya. And dito meron tong written notice ng proposed action, and the time and place of the meeting shall be sent to stockholder or member at their respective place of residence as shown in the book of the corporation, and must be deposited to the addressee in the post office with postage prepaid, okay, served personally, or when allowed in the bylaws or done with the consent of the stockholder, sent electronically in accordance with the rules and regulation of the Commission on the use of electronic data messages. By the way, lahat dito class ng mga dissenting stockholders daw, do sa proposed extension or shortening corporate term, you can exercise the what we call appraisal right. Ano ang ibig sabihin ng appraisal right? Appraisal right refers to the right of the stockholder to demand return of capital at fair market value in case nag-oppose sila. Okay, sa mga provision, okay, nag-oppose sila sa mga specific corporate act na minention under the law. Okay, at kasama ang shortening or extension of corporate term. Meaning amendment ng article of incorporation for extension or shortening corporate term. Okay? Another is the power to increase, decrease capital stock, increase banded indebtedness. Kaya tandaan nyo ha, pagdating sa stock, either increase or decrease. Pero pag bonds, mapapansin mo, increase lang. Kasi once na yan ay payment ng banded indebtedness, hindi kailangan ng stockholders approval. Kaya ang voting requirement nyo lang dyan ay majority ng board of directors present with a valid quorum lang. Pero pag nag-increase ka ng banded indebtedness, kailangan ko na ng majority ng board of director and at least two-thirds of the outstanding capital stock. Tapos daw kailangan ng meeting. Written notice of the time and place of the stockholders meeting, and the purpose for said meeting must be sent to the stockholder, okay, at their place of residence, okay, as shown in the book of the corporation. Serve on the stockholders personally, or pwede siyang through electronic means. Recognized in the corporation laws, corporations bylaws, and or the commission rules as valid mode for service of notices. Now, a certificate must be signed by the majority of the director of the corporation and countersigned by the chairperson and secretary of the stockholders meeting, setting forth the following. Okay, dapat nakalagay yan. A requirement of this section have been complied with. Amount of the increase or decrease of capital stock. Okay, procedural requirement lang to actually. In case of increase of capital stock, the amount of capital stock or number of shares of no par, okay, thereof actually subscribed. The names, nationality, and addresses, okay, of persons subscribing, the amount of capital stock or number of no par stock subscribed by each, and the amount paid by each on the subscription in cash or property, or the amount of capital stock or number of shares of no par allotted to each stockholder if such increase is for purpose of making effective stock dividend therefore authorized. Banded indebtedness daw to be incurred, created or increased, applicable to sa bonds. Okay? Amount of stock representing at the meeting, vote, okay, authorizing the increase or decrease of capital stock or the incurring, creating, or increasing banded indebtedness. Now, sabi dyan, any increase or decrease of capital stock or the incurring, creating, or increasing of any banded indebtedness shall require prior approval of the Commission. And when appropriate, sa Philippine Competition Commission. Baka mamaya kasi ang purpose ninyo, i-restrain yung trade. Or may violation sa Philippine Competition Law. The application daw with the Commission shall be made within 6 months from the date of approval of the Board of Directors and stockholders, which period may be extended for justifiable reason. Okay, no application for the issuance of an issued shares. Okay, ibig sabihin kung ganito kasi yan, yung tinutukoy kong increase in capital stock. Ibig sabihin, ini-increase mo yung authorized. Kasi halimbawa, meron ako for instance na 1 million or 10 million authorized. Tapos yung 10 million yung authorized, yung 6 million issued na. Yung 4 million unissued. Pag in-issue ko yung 4 million, hindi yan increase in authorized capital stock. Kaya lumalabas, ang voting requirement lang natin dyan, board resolution lang yan. Majority ng board of director present with a valid quorum. Okay, hindi kailangan ng stockholders approval. Pero kung halimbawa, ubus na for instance yung authorized mo, 10 million fully issued, hindi ka na pwedeng mag-issue pa more than the authorized. Otherwise, void yan. Kasi pwede lang kayong mag-issue ng shares up to maximum provided in the article of incorporation. Any issuance in excess of the authorized capital stock is null and void. Kaya ang procedure dyan is you need to amend the article of incorporation for the increase of capital stock. O pag nag-increase ka ng capital stock, kailangan ko na ng majority ng board of director and at least 2/3 of the outstanding capital stock. Kaya tandaan nyo ha, kung yan ay unissued lang, okay, hindi kailangan ng 2/3 ng OS. Sufficient na ang board resolution lang. At ang voting requirement is majority ng board of director present with a valid quorum. Now, ngayon, sabi dyan, copies ng certificate shall be kept on file in the office of the corporation and filed with the commission and attached to the original articles of incorporation. Sabi niyan, after approval by the Commission and the issuance by the Commission of its certificate of filing, the capital stock shall be deemed increased or decreased, and the incurring, creating, or increasing of any banded indebtedness authorized as the certificate of filing may declare. Ngayon baka ma-confuse ka, tingnan mo. The Commission shall not accept for filing any certificate of increase of capital stock unless accompanied raw by a sworn statement of the treasurer of the corporation lawfully holding office at the time of the filing of the certificate showing that at least 25% of the increase in capital stock has been subscribed and that at least 25% of the subscribed has been paid in actual cash to the corporation or that the property, the valuation of which is equal to the 25% of the subscription has been transferred to the corporation. Pero normally, kung titinan mo kasi, ito nag-a-apply sa increase in capital stock. Ibig sabihin dun sa original organization, okay, yung pag-organize nyo ng corporation, walang 25% rule. Kasi actually, ang isang purpose kasi ng provision dyan sa RA 11232, i-encourage yung ibig sabihin, kumbaga parang ease of doing business ba? Okay, para madaling makapag-organize ng corporation. Okay, pero kung mag-i-increase na kayo ng initial organization, walang 25% rule na nakalagay sa batas. Tinanggal kasi yun. Pero pagdating sa increase in authorized capital stock na, mag-i-increase ka na ng capitalization, kailangan mo i-observe ang 25% rule. Now, kung halimbawa magdi-decrease naman kayo ng capital stock, kailangan daw ng approval ng commission provided hindi mababiolate ang trust fund doctrine. Okay, kung halimbawa magdi-decrease ka ng capital stock, mapre-prejudice naman kunwari yung right ng corporate creditors, i-deny dyan ng Securities and Exchange Commission. Okay? Okay. Ano muna tayo dito? Okay, break muna uli. Okay? Pwede tayong gumawa ng separate video.